Your mind is limitless. The possibilities are endless. Awaken Your Mind Magic shows you how you can dream limitlessly and live your life on a new level. Susan Kathleen speaks with ordinary people who are living extraordinary lives using the power of their mind.
Silver on the outside, gold on the inside. Silver on the outside, gold on the inside. Silver on the outside.
Abundance, prosperity, and success. There are no limits to what you can dream. Join Susan Kathleen on a journey into your dreams, making a difference and living life on your own terms. This is Awaken Your Mind Magic.
Hello and welcome everyone. My guest speaker today is Anne Skinner from England, who I've known since 2017 when we met at a weekend transformational seminar in London. We became instant friends and have kept in contact with each other ever since. What impresses me most about Anne is how she decided to give up a lucrative career to live her truth, to live her why. And although Anne has worked as a facilitator since 2007, she only found her creative powers by accident a few years ago, which I can't wait for Anne to share with you here. It has revolutionized her work and her life. She is known internationally as the Heartworker and is a certified coach and trainer, as well as a published author, illustrator of the best-selling book, which can be found on Amazon, The Art of Contribution, and is also the author and illustrator of Annie and Eva Love Devon. Eva is Anne's beloved dog and is a key element in many of Anne's delightful doodles, which have now become her business, which is creative fun and full of joy. I adore Anne's colorful posts and illustrations. Through her work as a coach and creative, Anne hopes to inspire our courageous, compassionate, and creative hearts to lead the way. Welcome, Anne. So fantastic to have you with us here on Awaken Your Mind Magic. And I can't wait to share your delightful soul with everyone who tunes in.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan. That's so lovely to listen to, actually. It's nice to have your own life reflected back at you, isn't it? through the words and mouth of somebody else, somebody you treasure. Thank you.
It's always amazing, I find, and when you hear what another person thinks of you, it's almost like hearing your own voice reflected back at you, and you think, is that really me?
Yes, and this day and age, I suppose I'm accepting more of that, and I go, yeah, that is me. That is me. And that's
sure
joyful.
Is. It is joyful. And universe understands joy, laughter, and fun more than anything else. And I think this is what you are all about. In fact, I know it is. I just think of all sorts of explosive ideas and colors when I see you. And by the way, everybody, I call my dear friend Anne Pixie because I think it was about 2 years ago, she was doing these incredible illustrations, and I said, do some pixies, and she did.
Yes,
and she's just always been my pixie person.
I love flowers. So really, if because I'm a doodle artist these days as well. So I doodle flowers more than anything in the world, because if I don't know what to doodle, I'll start with flowers, and then life seems to flow forward from that. So flowers are really important in my life.
There's happiness in flowers and there's happiness in you. So this is what I love, is that I have you here on Awaken Your Mind Magic. And more important than anything is to find out what awakened you to where you are right now. So tell us your story. Tell us more from where you were in this corporate dizzy life and making you sort of feel crazy with all that stress stuff that going, high heels and corporate suits and stuff, to being this wonderfully calm, enlightened spirit that you are.
Oh, I don't know if I am that yet. I have moments of being like that, but many times when I'm not. But in answer to your question, I don't think there's one thing. There's a number of things that happened. And I'll take you back to the first thing that was a very, very clearly, divinely inspired moment. And that was when I had been working in recruitment at that time. And I overshot my welcome. I knew that there was something else out there for me, but I had no idea what that was. And so I ended up in a conflict at work, and through, it spiraled out of control. And before I knew it, I was sitting at home wondering, I'd left the job and wondering what on earth had happened, and had a lot of reflection time. And I could have been angry about a lot of things, about how I was treated or what people had done or hadn't done. But actually, I think I'm very grateful to myself for having at that moment the insight to go, and you need to look at yourself and what your part was. No matter what the other parts were, they were there as well. But your part, that's the thing you've got influence over. And that kind of started the little change in my life. And because the next thing that happened is I still had to think about what I'm going to do next. And this was a question I realized that had come to me time and time again. What am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? And you know what? I never had an answer to it. It was always a shrug of the shoulders and thinking, I don't know. I can do so many things. But what do I want to do next? What would I love to do next? I just did not know the answer to that. And we were sailing one day, my husband and I. We still had our boat then. And being in nature is such an important part of this awakening process for me. And whilst we were sailing and we were talking about what I potentially was going to do next and my next steps, I had a divinely inspired moment, and I changed my question by changing one word. And instead of do, the answer, the word that came in was be. What am I going to be next? And bang, I had my answer. I did not think about it, but I knew instinctively 100 million% that it was right. And that was, I want to be wise. And that was so profound to me in that moment, because I knew the truth of that. I knew how real and how important, essential this was for me, that recognition. Now, what did that mean to anybody else that might have been, yeah, but what are you going to do? You're going to be wise. But to me, I knew exactly then how to ask my questions better. Because in order to be wise, what will help me to do that? What will be a good next step? And that's how I became, funnily enough, a coach and a trainer. Because that I knew I already had a lot of wisdom, but I wasn't applying it and wasn't using it. I'd lived a hugely big and full and exciting life, and had many experiences, and had worked with so many people. So for me, that was a very natural step. And what happens when everything kind of falls in line, right? The universe comes to help you. And I genuinely believe that was what happened, because I thought at that moment, right, a trainer and coach is ideal for me. I always had an element of wanting to teach as well. And to be a support was always part of my nature, to the extent that sometimes I was an interfering busybody. But if it was my job, then it would be by permission, and that would make all the difference. So I stepped into where I liked to stand, but then from an empowering place rather than from a disempowered place. And 3 weeks later, the job that I wanted, or that I thought would be ideal as a next step, was literally given to me on a plate. They asked for somebody who had sales experience, who could speak perfect English and perfect Dutch. I'm native Dutch. And I had lived in England and abroad for many years, who had a recruitment experience. I mean, all of the elements that they asked for are like tick, 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 tick. And I applied and I held my vision for the outcome but playfully. I thought, well, I'm going to give it a go. And then I got the job. And that got me on the path that I am now, working as a coach and a trainer. And that path has shifted and moved in ways that I could not have foreseen. So that was my first awakening. My second awakening was my creativity. And that was also by accident and divinely inspired, I think. And do you want me to share that one?
Oh, absolutely. I love your story. I love it. And I know that it encourages, inspires so many people. So yes, absolutely. And do so right now. Please, my pixie friend.
Thank you. So the next, obviously, there's lots of steps in between, and the steps haven't been free flowing. They've been bang, head against the brick wall, trying to push my way through, and then knowing that doesn't work, or that if it does work, it's with a lot of effort and pain. So I'm finding that there are other ways to be in the world, and one of the ways to be very playful. And so, when you and I wrote our books, when we were part of Transformation TV, and sharing our story and our passion and our work with the world, we wrote a book as well. And I wrote, as you mentioned earlier, The Art of Contribution. But we also needed to create a cover for our books. And I went through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of images. And I just could not find an image that said what I wanted it to say. And I had an energetic feeling about what I wanted it to say. And I saw this person on the front cover with their hands sort of in in the sides, standing like a superwoman pose, but not like superwoman, but more like in their power, and standing for something, not for I've actually got a superhero shirt on now. One by the science visit.
I can see it. I wish you could all see. It's one of Anne's beautiful doodles.
But going back to the story, it's actually inspired by that. And so I was standing for something. That had been my whole, what the book was about, standing for contribution and standing for exploring what that meant for me. And then I thought, you know what? I have this vision and this energetic feeling about it. So why don't I just pick up a pen and just put it on the paper so I can see it? And there it was. And I thought, oh. And if you saw my first drawings, you would not think that I was necessarily talented, because I wasn't. I have now people tell me all the day, Anne, you're so talented. Oh, you're so talented. Oh. I'm like, I'm not. I've become talented, perhaps. Okay. But I only, when's it? 2016, right? Only 4 years ago, nearly to the day, I didn't even think I could draw. And so at that moment, it was more like, I love that little person on the page. It's not very good, but it says what I wanted to say. And you know what it was? What I recognized, and what I give myself brownie points for recognizing, is that it was born out of love, first of all, And it was honest. It was honest. And when it's honest, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be true. And
Yep.
And yes, I did do another couple of versions just to make it, front cover worthy. But I didn't work on it a lot. But I just know that's what it can't be anything else. And I think that was the whole book was about that. It's about how can we, that's contribution to me, not necessarily always about giving or charitable work. It's about how can we live an honest and loving life that automatically gives back to the world. And I still struggle with what that really means, even after writing and reading my own book. But I am understanding the different layers of it now. Yeah, but that's when my creativity is starting to awaken, because I suddenly went, wow, this is a whole different language. This is amazing. And then, of course, I had Eva as well. The third part of it was going out in nature. And with my dog Eva, I needed to go out on long walks. And she is a high energy dog and needed lots of outdoor walking and running. And yes, being out in nature awakened that other part of me, that memory of how important nature was as a child. When I was a child, how I could sit in a field and then look for the little flowers and really look at them and look at all the little animals. And I was always coming home with poorly animals, and I'd be out riding and I'd come back. I found a lost little, I don't know, bird, and I'd be putting that in my hard hat and doing all the way home with my little, little thing that I was going to save that day. So these were the things that were all starting to be uncovered again. The awakening, what is that? It's an uncovering, really, of getting rid of the layers that stopped us from seeing clearly. For that, you need space. So going out in nature meant creating space. Daring to put a pen on paper and be okay with and recognizing that the beauty is not in the perfection of the picture, but the imperfection of the truth and the realness of it allowed me to explore, doodling. And I started to create nice little sweet messages for people with little doodle faces and a little message for them. And I used to go to networking events and I would have these things to give out to people, and they could pull one out and that would be like, oh, this is exactly right for me, and it showed to me how simple it can sometimes be when we get out of the way of ourselves. Yeah. And when we just create stuff from love. Yeah.
You were speaking earlier on about designing your book cover, and now you design other people's book covers.
Well,
and how you've progressed.
Well, I don't necessarily. I've asked a lot. I don't actually do that a lot. I'm asked a lot. I'm asked to illustrate books, and there's something really weird about that. I've said no a lot, which is also another part of awakening. I've stopped pleasing. I'm very careful about how I use my creativity. That's not to say that I won't do other people's books. It just needs to be right for me. And I know that when I'm doing that book, I can't create my own. So it's really interesting.
What's your process? Because obviously I know how you create your doodles because you've been my friend for some time now. But would you let the listeners know what you use and how you get it out there? Because there are a lot of people at the moment during COVID-19 who could have this message and start being that wonderful, truthful, creative.
Yes, absolutely. Well, first of all of my work is heart-led. And that means dropping into that space. And I think one of the reasons, the why of doodling is important to understand. Doodling is a way of connecting our busy head to our loving heart through the power of our arm and pen. So when we doodle, there's a mindlessness to it, right? And people say, oh, I love it because I can zone out. I actually have a different perspective of that. And that is, I zone in. And I think we actually zone into our subconscious mind at that time. And we can allow our subconscious mind to express itself. And that is why it's a very healing thing to do. And when we do it with intention, a loving intention, so I might go into the landscape and I would take a photograph of Devon, a beautiful landscape here. And then I would sit down and I would actually doodle over the top of that photograph. I use an iPad and I use layers, so it's really beautiful to do that. But I do that with intention, for love for the creation, love for the countryside. That's just because that's my focus, my love. And I use 3 guiding keys, and they're not just for my creativity, but they help my creativity to blossom. And they are to be present. So in that moment, I'm totally present with myself and whatever focus I've given myself. To be curious about that. So I have curiosity when I'm doodling, when I'm like, wow, I wonder if I do this, what would happen then? And that makes it really fun. Wonder if the sky is suddenly orange today, what would happen then? Or this rock is blue, what would happen then? And that stops me, and actually it doesn't stop me from anything. It opens up possibility, and that's really important. And 3 is to be kind. And that is, my critical mind is very loud, a lot of the time, which is why it's so important for me to spend time where I love it, so I can balance that critical mind with loving kindness. And so there's this loving kindness to myself, and doodling therefore gives me an opportunity to heal. So if there was a process, it was be present, be curious, be kind. And it's really more of a way of being in the world. That translates beyond my doodling and beyond my creativity, but into my day-to-day life. And it connects me to my heart. And I feel I'm a better person for it. And I am more congruent.
And when you are coaching people with your program, can you let us know more about what the process is and how you put yourself across and help people to find their heart-centered creativity?
Well, actually, it is those 3 keys. Yes, I have lots of coaching tools, but when it comes down to it, I think there's very little we need to do as coach other than be a reflector for the other person's genius, really, isn't it? And that means that we need to be incredibly present with them so they can feel heard and seen. We need to be curious, which means get out of the way of what we want for them and to help them to discover what they want. That can be a challenge when you can see what you want for them. And that takes practice. And sometimes I catch myself, and I have to step back and go, yeah, curious. I wonder about that. This is not an analytical curiosity. This is I wonder. Wow. And it creates a playfulness and an ease, lightness of being in that space. So you can create light for the other person. And then to be kind. So really, our biggest job as a coach is to love, really, to love the other person. That's not a process. I don't have a 3-step process that I take people through. I have, however, got a self-coaching process called Evolve. And that's a year-long process where I take people through 12 themes with subjects. And they can actually use the power of self-reflection and self-coaching, as well as doodling or self-expression, which is what doodling to me is, to explore their life and help them to look at who they are and where they want to head going forward. But the simplest, that's a lot of words, right? But if I had to sum it up in one word or one sentence, well, one word, it would be love. One sentence would be keep returning to love. That's it. Keep returning to love. That's, in a nutshell, what I do with my work and my life, and what I do in my coaching. Keep supporting those in front of me to keep returning to love, to keep reminding them that when they're feeling challenged, then I know that's okay. It's fine. Life is challenging. It's not going to be easy. But how can we go through that with more grace? The only way to do that is to keep returning to love and come from that space. And that means cultivating love for ourselves, being present with ourselves, being curious about what drives us. What drives us? What are our values? How are we interpreting those values? How do they shape our direction going forward? So that's kind of where I'm at. Why do we do what we do? That's my fascination with life, and that's where I spend time with with my clients, so they know and they can explore that for themselves. Yeah,
You have you talk about being courageous, being compassionate, and to use their hearts. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. Well, there's so many things I could say about that because they're huge subjects in themselves. But I think the word heart, courage in French, means, that it's courage, right? And it's heart. So when we're coming from our heart and we move forward with courage, we come from the heart. That's when we overcome things in life, because it takes us away from thinking. We're not thinking our way forward in life. When we're living a courageous life, we come from the heart. It can only be coming from the heart. Courage doesn't live in the head. It lives in the heart. And it's the same for compassion. You cannot show compassion to somebody when you're coming from your head. You have to come from your heart space. It's the only way. There isn't a bypass. There's a reason why we don't do that often. And I still find myself, this is lifelong learning, really. But when we don't, it's because we're fearful. We're fearful about what people think of us. We're fearful about how they view us. We're fearful of showing ourselves, which is why being vulnerability is a very courageous thing to do. That is something I've learned.
Yeah, that comes into where you're wearing your heart on your sleeve.
Yes, nice.
And you're showing your vulnerability and your honesty. So you're leaving yourself open. And I think we are so often made to believe you've got to keep your feelings within your chest and not release them. And this is what I understand you do with Evolve, is teach people how to allow themselves to be expressive and tell the truth and live their truth.
Very true.
It's a great program, everybody. She's honestly, she is the most incredible woman, and she's just beautiful.
Thanks.
Inside and outside.
Can I add to that, Susan? It's not just about expressing your emotions, because I think a lot of us do that, and we create a lot of drama as a result. So it's not like, oh, I'm so angry, blah, 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 I'm so sad. That's sometimes necessary, but it's about teaching ourselves to find an outlet for our emotions in a way that supports us and is better for those around us. Now, for me, that happens to be doodling. And I think doodling is a very, very effective tool, but it might not be. Writing is another one, but it has to be an expression of something that's, creative, I think. Something that, so it can be used and morphed into something that is helpful and useful in the world. That's the way I look at it right now. I could be wrong, but that's the way I look at it.
I agree with you. I believe that, my program is about writing, and it's about, as you say, with your doodling, you're using your mind and your hand, and it's coming from within you, and you transforming it onto paper, and or some form of medium that we now use, like your iPad or whatever, our computers for writing. But what I understand there as well is how you are using that to be able to project your honesty. And I think personally that during COVID-19, doing your program with you is very helpful, especially for people who are going through some sort of a stress, or they feeling as if there's no, lots of people are scared at the moment. They don't know what the future holds. However, when you have that ability to calm yourself down with your doodles, it helps. And we need more people like you out there with the creativity. I mean, you walked away from a corporate world in order to follow your doodles, and your doodles have now become your business. Tell the listeners more about what you have out there. I mean, you've got T-shirts, you've got all sorts of amazing things. Let them know how you've managed to turn this into an industry.
Well, I suppose right now there's several aspects to my work. There's the coaching, which still is my core work, by the way. But yes, I have doodles. I found a way. Well, the reason that happened is people kept asking me, can you put that on a mug? Can you do that? Oh, you could make it nice this out of that. And initially I did all sorts of things. And then in the end, I started to be more discerning about what I wanted to create. So I do have a shop called the Heartworker, and I'm still morphing with that, still playing. It's my play field. Because it's my heart work, right? So it's less about having to earn loads of money with that. It's more about, it's not to say that I don't want to earn money with that. That's, that would be silly, of course. Of course I do. But I wanted to be in service to myself, to the planet as well. So I'm trying to find ways to do that feels right for me. But I have canvas art now. I've become more of an artist. I'm embracing the artistry of it. So I do canvas art. I take part in little exhibitions to trial things out. This is what I would recommend also. If you're finding something that you love, just trial things out. They don't need to be anything before they are going to be something. But in the meantime, you're building. So you're creating this, you're creating that. Then you maybe potentially professionalize it. Now, so I've got the shop. But the other side of my doodles is my programs, my online programs. And I love doing them. So I've started creating little mini courses. And at the start of COVID, I offered this free course called Doodle for Wellbeing. And I had about 100 plus people from all over the world coming in and joining me in this program. And I loved sharing it. It was really cool. So it was like I was guiding I did a little writing, and I would guide people with an intention and some writing around that subject. And I would read them out to them sort of in a kind of half meditation form for them to go within and then doodle what comes out for them. And for many, it was a very healing process. So I'm offering that free again. But I've got now other little mini courses, and they're doodle for fun. So if for those that say, I can't draw, well, then that's it. And particularly if you also have kids, it's also family friendly. And so I share my favorite things that I love to do, doodles, like my bees, my flowers, my trees, my little cute boats, the things that and my birds, or the quirky ones that I do. And I even do people and cars. I love doing little mini cars and vans. They just light me up. So I share those in a little mini course as well. And I have something called a Doodle Powerhouse. So I have all these mini courses. And at the moment, I'm meeting with a group of people who join me every week, every Wednesday. We meet up and we doodle together. And I give them a creative assignment to do. And that's both fun and enjoyable and great for well-being.
So what I love about all of this is from your initial awakening, you have got this passion. You're able to live your truth through creativity from your heart, what you absolutely love doing. And there is no longer that, the grind. I got to do the 9-to-5 stuff and everything else. You have trusted in what universe gave to you at birth, and you didn't realize you had it. You embraced it, and now you are soaring like a bird. Well, you could be my pixie with little wings, able to soar with those. So what I love, and what I love about you is everything that you truly love is in your doodles. You've got Eva, your border collie. You've got your little boats because you sail. Mm-hmm. You've got your flowers, and your bees, and you've even got your hubby in some of your doodles. Tell us more about him.
My hubby, I am very, very blessed to have a wonderful husband. Life like any long marriage. We've been married for 27 years coming up now this month. And
congratulations!
Yeah, and we our story is quite the way that we met is very, very special. Actually, I think I kind of fell in love with him a little bit. Definitely was intrigued by him before I even knew him. We were both taking part in a round the world yacht race, and he was still delivering a boat somewhere from wherever he was, Antigua, I think, going back to the UK. And in the meantime, I was already on the boat with the rest of the crew, preparing for this race and getting trained up and all of that. But on the galley, on the kitchen wall, there was a postcard from Neil. Neil's my husband. And the postcard from Neil, I kept looking at that. And everybody kept saying to me, you haven't met Neil yet. He's great. And so I was like really intrigued by this man. And then when we finally met in St. Catherine's docks on the naming ceremony of the boats, we just hit it off as friends straight away, but there wasn't, a love connection at that time. But we were like mates right from the bat. And in fact, he always remembers meeting me for the first time because he was standing in the galley with one of our crew members who said, "Oh, you haven't met Anne yet, have you? Well, don't even think about it. She's far too good for the likes of you." and he saw me walking down the steps to come into the galley, and I have rather long legs, and he said, and the legs kept coming. And then finally I came. But yeah, we were really good friends, and then we ended up both being sailmakers, repairers on the boat, and we spent a lot of time together. Proximity is obviously a big part of falling in love, isn't it? But yeah, we just hit it off as friends, and then fell in love, and we're here 27 years later, and very blessed to have him. It's not always easy. He has, mentally, he can be challenged. He was diagnosed with depression when we were 6 years married, and that's been a struggle. Finding now that there's a difference between being depressed and suffering with bouts of depression, of course. And so he's finding his own way around it, and the way he deals with it, doodling is not for him at all. So we all have to find our own creative ways of dealing with our own life challenges. But I think it was also very much part, his struggles was a real mirror for me, because I love have fun and be joyful, but life is not always like that, right? We must also, as we talked about, we must also be vulnerable. And I was always very busy in trying to make him feel better, to the extent that I lost myself. And that's exactly why I got myself in trouble at that time, because I had lost myself. I needed to stop focusing on everybody else, and I started to focus on what I was doing, how I was doing that, without becoming self-centered, but more from a loving perspective, and fill my own cup, so to speak. And that's changed everything. Yeah.
One big thing, as you say, fill your cup first, then let it overflow. And I think very often, I deal a lot with people who have been through suicide or have family members who have, and deal with the depression as you speak. And it does take somebody who is as kind and empathetic as you to step back and realize you can't actually fix that person.
That's
the
right.
only person that can be fixed, or the way, is for them to fix themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because it does drain you, and I totally hear what you're saying there as well, because you love that person and you want that person to be uplifted and full of joy like you, and dance and sing. I mean, you got to hear this woman's voice. She is like a nightingale. She's we'll go into that more after this. But what happens is we do get sucked into trying to fix people, and we can't fix them.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that you actually, from that adversity, came into your reality, your positivity, and your self-love. And we now have these fabulous doodles that are all over the world, and you're helping people in that way to heal and to fix themselves. Tell us more about your choir.
Well, it's not my choir.
Well, the choir that you're a part.
Yes, I'm part of a choir, and actually, the choir is called Glorious Chorus. Sadly, now with COVID, we're not allowed to meet up like we normally did and do. So it's been a real struggle. We have met up on a couple of occasions, and we've done stuff online. But the choir was a very important moment for me. Neil and I traveled a lot in our lives, so there was very little commitment that I could give to a choir until we arrived back here in the UK, where we live in Devon. And I said to Neil, look, there's two things I want when we move here, and there's a dog, and we the soonest opportunity I can get, we got a dog, we got Eva. And the next thing was, I must find a choir again. I used to sing in choirs when I was younger, and at home we would always sing, and I love harmony singing particularly. We used to sing harmony at home. My dad is a really good singer. My sister is pretty good, and my brother could sing if he wanted to, but I think he was never comfortable with it. But it was always good to have us sort of doing harmonies, and that's a really joyful thing. As a child, I thought I wanted to be a singer when I grew up. I really did, but I'm very glad, weirdly, I'm glad I didn't become that. I don't think I would have fared well in the music industry. And many times in my life, when I thought, what am I going to do next? I thought, maybe this is the opportunity and the chance I will take to go and become a singer, right? And then I didn't take that chance. And I always know that to me is a sign that I don't want it badly enough. I want something badly enough, I will go for it. That's just the way I am, pretty determined. But there was always something that stopped me from doing that. And there's two things. I think singing is one of the most vulnerable things you can do. Not in a choir, perhaps less so, but when you're out on your own singing with all eyes on you, that is a very vulnerable thing to do. You've got to really love that. And I was quite frightened of getting bad feedback, because singing was so important to me. So if I got bad feedback, which is different to the doodling. It doesn't matter. I can go wrong. But with singing, I can't go off, I can't go off piece with my notes because that would be really bad. So a lot of rules around singing. And secondly is I realized that singing was never meant to be my job, but always meant to be part of my healing. It is a way of expression and self-expression. I am one of the, or I was at least, one of the solo singers in the choir. So that seems to happen, the little things I have done over the years. It's always like, you become a soloist. So I am definitely not a bad singer. I'm definitely not the best. I don't spend time practicing. I don't even listen to music, hardly ever. I like peace and quiet most of the time. But I like making sound sometimes. And I love singing harmonies with others. Maybe my favorite thing is to sing in ensembles of 4 to max 10 people is probably my favorite thing, because then you can really make a difference in that choir. You really, can hold your own, and it's a challenge, but you can do it together and you don't have to do it alone. I think that's, for me, is what singing has become. It's a togetherness. It's a way of harmonizing. It's a community spirit. That is actually why I love singing more than anything in the world.
And that is why you love bees, because you like to be part of a hive.
There are many solitary. Do you know that there's more solitary bees than I've learned a lot about bees, really.
Those will be your soloists, my darling, I think.
I am both. Yes, I am both. I'm definitely a mix of both. I love my alone time. I need plenty of alone time. But I like buzzing in and out of community as well. And
so cool.
Yeah.
I love that. That's fabulous. We must remember that. Now, you're the founder of the Heartworker's Way.
Yes.
Tell us more.
So the Heartworker's Way is, I think what I shared more than, it's very simply put, heart-led, first of all. So it's my coaching. It's where I share my coaching from. It's heart-led, guided by my 3 guiding keys: to be present, be curious, be kind. And doodling as part of it, or at least creative self-expression as part of it. So with my clients, that's what I help them to explore for themselves. Where do you love to spend your time? And most of the time, that is, how can you express that creatively? And most of the time, that will be done something different for different people. And there's no specific process that I have, but I do through conversation and exploration.
And you were saying earlier on, and I want the listeners to hear this, because it is something that Anna has actually mentioned to Anne. We call her Anna as well, Pixie, whatever. I just caught myself there.
It's all good. It's all good.
You are going to confuse all your clients with all your names.
I have.
Oh, just listening to that podcast with Susan Kathleen. And, what is your name? But anyway, I digress. It is my job to digress. Anyway, what the listeners would love to hear is what you are going to gift them as part of this podcast, and that is this fabulous 12-day Doodle Program. If you could speak more about that.
So there's 12 days of evolution, really. I like to think of it as an evolution. And if you look at the heartworkersway.com website, you'll see it's probably be right there, is ultimately, I think, our evolution is a return to love. And if you look at the first 4 letters of the word evolve or evolution, then that is love spelled backwards, isn't it? So to me, it is a return to love. And that is the process. 12 days of being reminded to return to love. and using the power of doodling. Or you could, if you wanted to, just use writing if that's your preferred language. But sometimes doodling is more powerful because a picture tells 1,000 words, and then and when we're writing, we can still be in our heads. Doodling helps us to connect to our heart, and then we speak a different language and things become simpler and clearer. And that's why I advocate it. And it brings a lightness of spirit. And that's why I bring that into the Heartworkers way. But it's not a must, but it's a suggestion. So it's 12 days. And you can watch my videos. So there's 12 videos and also some videos giving you a doodle lesson to get you. So if you're really worried about it, I give you the tools, and I'll share that doodling is nothing more than just adding dots and lines, squiggles and shapes together and throwing them together and see what happens. And then I love to add color as well. But that, again, is to the individual. Some people love black and white, and that's just fine too. Right. And so it's 12 days of it, really. And that's it. Simple. Simple.
So that's fantastic. So everybody, I will leave the link below the interview so that you can actually click onto that. And it is a gift from my lovely, lovely pixie friend to you, and you will thoroughly enjoy it. It's great fun. And you'll find that on www.theheartworkersway.com. And in the joining area, it is the 12-day evolution. I've just had an epiphany. Is that why your dog's called Eva?
No. Why is that? Going back to that.
Eva, evolution. It is extreme.
I was thinking of Adam and Eve, going back to the beginnings of time, going back to the original love. No, she was called Eva when we got her. I did think that was rather, an unusual name for a dog, and we did think about changing it when we got her, but nothing else would stick. So Eva it was, and it was always meant to be Eva. My mother was.
Well, she was part of your evolution.
Yeah, yes, very much so. Eva's taught me a lot and continues to teach me a lot about myself. But not all pretty, I tell you that. I am human. I am absolutely human. I have many faults and many of my own struggles and strains and stresses. But I like to think that I have found a way to live, to be in this world that brings lightness to that. And that is what I'd like to share with others.
You certainly have. You're a bright light, and you are just so much fun as well, and such a sense of humor. And I just love you. I am so glad that you were here today. And thank you so much for being with us, Anna.
Thank you so much, Susan. I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Great. Thanks for listening to this delightful woman. Go do the 12-day program with her. It is so much fun. Bye now. That's Awaken Your Mind Magic for another week. If anything you've heard today has really impacted you and you want to know more, or you would just like to connect with me, then visit my website, awakenyourmindmagic.com, and reach out for a free one-on-one discovery session with me.
Silver on the outside, silver on the outside, gold on the inside. Silver on the outside, gold on the inside. Silver on the outside.
Tune in next week, where I'll be discussing more tools to unlock your dreams and live a limitless life that you would truly love to live. I'm Susan Kathleen, and this has been Awaken Your Mind Magic.